Is there any more of your own compositions you intend to record?
Well, we did record another song of our own when we were down there, but it wasn't finished enough. So, no, we'll take it back next time and see how they like it then.
We felt like we must have goofed a bit with the first record because it hadn't gone to number one. Oh, we were quite cocky. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know.
It sold big in Liverpool initially and some in Manchester in the Northwest, enough to get on the charts, but it successively improved its chart position relentlessly, week after week after week. And that's a sign of A, a quality record that people are responding to, and B, an innovative and aggressive marketing campaign that Epstein financed, envisioned, and executed.
And Kim Bennett was an unsung hero in that he was banging on the doors all over the place trying to get exposure for Love Me Do. Not just because he thought that the Beatles were worthy of it, but because his job was to plug the music, the copyrights that his company had signed, and that included Love Me Do and its B-side, P.S. I Love You. So his job for Ardmore and Beechwood was to get exposure for Love Me Do. He even flew from London to Luxembourg to get Love Me Do played on Radio Luxembourg. He did everything he could to get Love Me Do played on a radio show in the BBC radio show Saturday Club. And in the end, his efforts were undone because Brian Epstein innocently had encouraged the fans in Liverpool to send postcards into the show to request the record be played. And the BBC had been somewhat exposed and embarrassed by a campaign a couple of years earlier that a music publishing company had done to try and get exposure on a record by sending in fake postcards requesting the record be played. And therefore they were particularly sensitive to any number of postcards for any one record. And when Brian asked the fans in Liverpool to write in, they all did. And the guy on Saturday Club, the producer, Jimmy Grant, said, "Oh, all these postcards, this must be a scam." And Kim Bennett, who had just got the record promised for the show, had it withdrawn before broadcast. And that was to his enormous frustration.
By November of '62, still within the realm of this book, he is completely tuned into who they are. He realizes how original they are. He wants to do an album with them. He talks about going to the Cavern and making their first album a live album, which is what Please Please Me would have been. And he's fully tuned in.
At the meeting, the Beatles put their foot down and refused to let Martin issue How Do You Do It as their next single. Instead, they wanted Ringo back on drums and insisted Please Please Me be their next single.
and it would have been very different without George Martin. They could have done something with another producer, but he was the only man who was a maverick like they were on the London record scene at the time they came up. But he was also the only one with the desire to be different.
Right.
Most people just followed a formula. And there was also the whole, at that time, the big thing, certainly in England, was for record producers to insert their name in as co-composers of songs, or to insist that their song is on the B-side or even the A-side of their artist's recording.
Like Norman Petty would do.
Yeah, and in England, Norrie Paramore was the big one who was doing that, a Cliff Richard's producer. George Martin was one of the very few who didn't do that. Well, that was very lucky.
Right.
The Beatles story does have a lot of luck, but in the end, you realise it has so much luck at almost every turn that it's just like, well, it was something about them that was causing it to happen.
When we came back from Hamburg and did Leicester de Montfort Hall, or wherever it was, Coventry, you know, we played the ballroom and we had the worst first night thing and we were all nervous and it was terrible.
And then we'd do our first date in England, and that would be somewhere like Coventry or Leicester. And we'd come out and we'd do the worst show we'd ever done, because we'd, forgot how you turn the amps up. You get out of the swimmer, so you forget where your levels are, and you forget exactly how near the mic it is you got to sing.
The next time we went back to EMI, they were really more friendly. Oh, yeah. Hello, lads, come in. Yes, okay.
They're going to record Please Please Me. They're having a recording session, and Bobby Brown, the fan club secretary, went along with them. And John asked her if she could play piano in the song during, the guitar riff.
And yeah, she could play the piano, so I'm sure that, that wouldn't have been a difficult thing for her, and it would have sounded fine. But the very fact that John was even entertaining the idea of it, had the idea of it, not just entertaining it, but had the idea that she could be on it, was fascinating to me. That he wouldn't think, oh no, she's not a professional, we better not have her anywhere near this. You could play this, Bobby, couldn't you, kind of thing. In the end, yeah. I think she would have needed to be in the Musicians' Union, technically, and she wasn't. And George Martin would have certainly had a say as to whether or not she would have been involved. But the very fact that John had the notion that she could do it was interesting.
Please Please Me is my song, complete. Was my attempt at writing a Roy Orbison song, would you believe it? I wrote it in the other bedroom in my house at Menlove Avenue in Woolton, which was my auntie's place, the suburbs. I remember the day, and the pink eider down on the bed, and I'd heard Roy Orbison doing Only the Lonely or something, and I was trying to please me. That's where that came from. Although the arrangement was made by all of us. The song did not sound like that when I wrote it. It was just a basic whatever on a guitar.
And they came back with it, with a different idea, and I added the harmonica to it. And in no time at all, it seemed to be transformed. to be transformed. And we recorded it, and I was so delighted with it. I said, "Gentlemen, you've got your first number one."
They were sidelined pretty much by George Martin, and Brian Epstein was invited to consider Dick James as the Beatles publisher from the second record onwards. Now, Dick James deserved his slice of luck, and he did incredible work for the Beatles in that period as well.